Good afternoon, sir. Do you acknowledge you're still under oath and still sworn to tell the truth?
Yes, I do,
Thank
Your
you.
Honor.
This is a resumption of direct examination. Mr. Chernoff, good afternoon.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon. Mr. Phillips, good afternoon.
Mr. Chernoff?
We were talking about you being contacted by Peter Lopez on behalf of Michael Jackson.
Correct.
In 2007.
Correct.
And the contact was made. For the purpose of perhaps using AEG as a promoter of production. Did you have any idea what the meeting was going to be about with Peter Lopez?
Well, I assumed the first meeting was going to be to talk about the potential of Michael getting back on the stage again.
Okay, now was that something that AEG Live would be interested in?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you say absolutely. Tell us what you mean by that.
He's the greatest star in contemporary music. So.
And getting Michael Jackson back on stage in 2007 would have been a monumental achievement. It would have been a fantastic concert, a great sell. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And that's something AEG was very interested in.
That is correct.
In fact, any entertainment company would be interested in that particular.
I would assume so.
All right.
I can only speak for hours, but yes.
Okay. Now, did you keep track of Michael Jackson's career up to that time? Were you aware of the last time he had actually had a concert?
No more or less so than just being in the business, and I didn't do any specific research on his tours.
To your knowledge, when was the last time that Michael Jackson had been on stage, done concerts?
I honestly cannot recollect. I'm not sure.
In the 90s?
It would be the late 90s, I'm sure. You know, it's going to be the 90s.
Were you familiar in 2007 with where Michael Jackson was living? Did you know where he was living?
No, I didn't know.
The meeting with Peter Lopez was held where?
In Las Vegas.
Okay, and that was with Peter Lopez and Michael Jackson in attendance.
That is correct.
Who else was at the meeting?
To the best of my recollection, Mr. Chernoff, it was Ramon Bain, who was serving as Michael's manager / spokesperson at the time. There was a lawyer named Cross from, I think, Maryland. There were Ramon Bain's assistant, I don't remember her name, and there was another gentleman there. And then there were a number of AEG executives besides me.
It's a pretty large meeting.
It was, yes.
Where was it held?
At Turnberry Isle in the wine tasting room.
Okay. In Las Vegas?
Yes, in Las Vegas.
Why was Las Vegas chosen?
I honestly have no idea. It was the choice location that Peter Lopez gave us.
All right. You had this meeting. How long did the meeting last?
Meeting probably lasted about an hour and a half.
All right. And did the group come to any resolution about what was going to be done?
No, there was no resolution. It was the first meeting.
All right. After that meeting, was there any subsequent contact with Peter Lopez or Michael Jackson? I mean, in 2007. I'd like to limit it to.
Not with Michael Jackson. There were conversations and there was contact with Peter Lopez and Ramon Bain.
All right. So there was subsequent negotiations, discussions about concerts.
That's correct.
Ultimately, did these negotiations amount to anything? Was there any concert scheduled as a result of these negotiations?
No.
Okay. And then, since nothing occurred from these negotiations, did you drop the matter, or did you continue approaching Peter Lopez to set something up, some concert tour up?
No, at that point, it was readily apparent that Michael wasn't ready to take the stage again, so we didn't pursue it at that moment in time.
All right. When did you next get approached, or when did you next approach Michael Jackson or his people to try to arrange for a concert series?
That would have been, I believe, to the best of my recollection, late August 2008.
All right, 2008. Who contacted you?
Tom Barrick's office at Colony Capital contacted my company.
Okay. Now, this was out of the blue contact?
Yeah,
Just phone call?
yes, correct.
Who is Tom Barrack?
Tom Barrack is a principal in a company called Colony Capital.
Is Colony Capital in?
Just a moment. Okay. Yeah, it's distracting, the overhead projector. Thank you.
That's still not working.
Deputy Jones will accomplish that.
Miracle work.
Okay? Could you spell the word before capital?
Capital C, I assume it's spelled C-A-P-I-T-A-L.
No.
Oh,
It's Colony.
The word before.
Colony.
Colony.
Colony, C-O-L-O-N-Y.
Thank you.
Is Colony, may I continue?
Sure.
Is Colony Capital an entertainment company?
Not to my knowledge.
An entertainment agency?
No.
What kind of company is it?
My knowledge of it is that it is like a private equity fund.
All right. And the owner, the principal in that company is Tom Barrack?
Right, I think there are numerous partners.
Okay. Who did Tom Barrack contact? Was it you directly?
No, he actually contacted Phil Anschutz.
Who is Phil Anschutz?
He's the chairman of AEG, and someone I report to.
He is the Anschutz and Anschutz Entertainment Group?
Yes, he is.
All right. Tom Barrack knew Phil Anschutz, to your knowledge?
I believe so.
And then you were contacted by Phil Anschutz?
Correct.
Were you familiar with any involvement that Tom Barrack had with Michael Jackson?
Sustain, 350 and 352.
Did Phil Anschutz, when he called you, what instructions were you given?
Objection, hearsay, relevant.
I'm going to sustain the objection. I think we can go to the next step. Thank you.
After the conversation, after the boss called you, what did you do?
I had my office set up an appointment for me to go and meet with Mr. Barrack and some of his other partner, a fellow named Richard Nanula, at Colony Capital.
All right. And this was where? Where is this?
In Century City.
I'm sorry,
In Century City, California, Los Angeles.
All right. Was the meeting already set up for you?
No, I set it up.
Okay. You made a phone call and you set up the meeting.
That's correct.
How soon did you meet with Tom Barrack and his partners?
I believe it was the next day or the day after, to the best of my recollection.
All right. And then what happened?
I went in there. I had a meeting with them. Tom Barrack, I think it was Richard Nanula, who explained to me that they...
Mr. Phillips, could you speak up just a little bit?
Okay, sure. I'll get closer. I believe it was, to the best of my recollection, a gentleman named Richard Nanula, who was a partner in Colony Capital, pretty much led the meeting and explained to me that that Colony Capital had purchased the note on Neverland, Michael's ranch in North Santa Barbara County, had purchased the note on his ranch from a company called Fortress.
All right. And what did that have to do with the concert?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Sustain.
Was there conversation about a concert during this meeting? Or concert tour series?
That what Richard Nanula
You
said.
can just answer that specific question. The partial answer is stricken disregard.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. And who had that conversation? You and who?
And Richard Nanula and Tom Barrack.
All right. After this meeting, after this discussion about a concert, what did you do next, Mr. Phillips?
They set a meeting up for me with a gentleman named Dr. Tomei, who was presented to me as Michael Jackson's manager at that time.
All right, Dr. Tomei.
Correct.
And the meeting was already set up for you?
It was set up after that meeting at Colony, or during that meeting at Colony.
All right. And where was this meeting held?
At the Bel Air Hotel.
All right. And when was this meeting held?
I'm not sure, but it would have been the next day or the day after. I believe it was the same week that I had the meeting at Colony Capital.
You did say that you had the meeting at Colony Capital in August of 2008.
Right.
It would have been in August then? You had this meeting with Thomas?
That is correct.
All right. And it was at the Bel Air Hotel?
Yes.
Okay. You went to there was the next day, you went to this meeting at the Bel Air Hotel to meet with Dr. Tomei. Had you ever met Dr. Tomei?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Did you know Dr. Tomei?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained. Let's get to the next step. Thank you.
Did you recognize Dr. Tomei when you walked? I mean, how did the meeting occur? I mean,
Just a moment. The objection is sustained. There was a meeting. The next question.
okay. Can you tell us where in the Bel Air Hotel the meeting was?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
We can agree that somewhere within the confines of the Bel Air Hotel you met with Dr. Tomei, right?
Just to clarify
Yes.
your question, I'm not sure it was the next day.
Okay.
You said the next day.
All right. But you did meet with Dr. Tomei.
That is correct.
All right. Who else was at the meeting?
Just Dr. Tomei.
All right. And what was the discussion about?
That Michael Jackson
Relevance limited to the concert tour.
Did this have to do with a proposed concert
Yes,
tour?
yes.
The objection is overruled. You may answer it, sir.
Okay, Michael Jackson wanted to restart his career. The primary part of it being touring live, but he was also going to put out new music during the course of the tour.
Was Dr. Tomei, in your understanding, was Dr. Tomei a representative of Michael Jackson?
He introduced himself to me as Michael's manager.
Okay. Now, you were once again obviously interested in putting that together, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And whereas in 2007 you said that it was clear Michael Jackson was not ready, was it your impression that based on the information that you had received that Michael Jackson was ready to do these concert tours, or you just didn't know?
I didn't know this was the first meeting. This is what I was being told.
Right. It was kind of an odd scenario that puts you into this position with Dr. Tomei in the Bel Air Hotel, wasn't it?
Objection, leading. Counsel's testifying.
Sustained.
The process that started these conversations about the tour with Michael Jackson, was that usually how things happened?
Objection, vague.
Do you understand it?
I mean, I understand it enough to answer.
You may answer it. Overruled.
Okay. There's nothing usual about my job or my business and how things get started or things happen. So, no, this was just, for me, just another meeting about Michael touring.
All right. Did you followed up on the meeting with Dr. Tomei?
Yes.
How did you follow up?
We had numerous phone conversations about it. There were other meetings, subsequent meetings, and there were negotiations for Michael to actually return to the stage.
All right. These negotiations, these subsequent meetings, these phone calls, they were all done with Dr. Tomei?
That is not all of them. He had an attorney, two attorneys actually.
All right. And who were these attorneys?
Dennis Hawk and Peter Lopez.
All right. Peter Lopez again.
Yes.
At some point, did you have a face-to-face meeting with Michael Jackson?
Yes, I did.
When was this?
The first meeting with Michael Jackson in 2008 was, I believe, sometime in September at the Bel Air Hotel.
And who was in attendance at this meeting?
It was me, Dr. Tomei, and Michael. It was the three of us. And plus, he had some of his bodyguards were at the hotel, but they weren't in the meeting.
Were you familiar with Michael Jackson's bodyguards? Did you know them?
No, that was the first time I had met them.
And did you subsequently come to know them?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Vaguely.
Vaguely.
Yeah.
All right. So in September 2008, this is the first time now you've spoken directly with Michael Jackson about the possibility of consorts, right?
That is correct.
All right. And Dr. Tomei is there. You've spoken to him frequently about
That's
it.
correct.
Right? By the time you met in September 2008, had you already discussed with Dr. Tomei the parameters of what AEG would be interested in doing?
Yes, we discussed our concepts and our ideas.
All right. And what was that, if you recall? Your concept, your ideas, as of September 2008.
Okay, and the plan that and it wasn't just me, it was the other executives of my company, like Paul Gongaware, in laying out a plan to present to Michael in terms of starting his touring career again. Since I think it had been 12 years since he was on stage, is my recollection at the time, was to actually start in London at the O2 and do what we call a residency show at the O2. It was internally, we called it the Mountain Coming to Muhammad, meaning instead of an artist touring with 20 trucks and all the expense of that, get fixed into one venue and then advertise it around the world. Now, obviously, it takes a very special artist to be able to do that with. And that was the first phase of what could have been a multi-year touring plan.
So you were thinking in terms of phases at that time?
That's correct.
And this had been discussed with Dr. Tomei?
Yes, it had.
Okay. So by the time you met with Michael Jackson, you don't know what Dr. Tomei discussed with Michael Jackson, I take it, but he might have discussed this particular issue, concerts at O2 as a first phase towards something greater.
Objection, relevant speculation.
Sustained.
Is that what you were going to talk to Dr. Tomei and Michael Jackson about in September of 2008?
Well, that question makes reference to an answer I just did not allow and a question where the objection was sustained. You're going to have to re-ask the question.
As part of the conversation at the meeting that you were having on September 2008, was it to discuss this phase plan?
Yes.
Okay. And did you discuss that with Michael Jackson?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Tell us, did it appear to you that Michael Jackson, your particular perception, that he was receptive to the idea?
Very.
Okay. And at this point in your conversations with him, did you feel like that he was ready to do this tour, ready to do these concerts?
Well, it's hard to answer your question when you say feel. It was apparent from his discussions with me that he was motivated and energized and receptive to the idea.
All right. After September 2008, did you have another meeting to discuss this with Michael Jackson and Tomei, Dr. Tomei?
Yes, I did. We had a number of meetings after that.
All right. And these were all held where?
At the Bel Air Hotel.
All right. Now, I want to direct your attention to these meetings that you had. This was all sort of narrowing down the parameters of the contract, the agreement. Is that fair to say?
We never discussed money with Michael. The negotiations were done separately. The meetings with Michael were more creative.
All right. Well, let's go to October, Halloween 2008. Do you recall a meeting that you had there with Michael Jackson and Dr. Tomei?
Yes.
All right. And who else was at this meeting?
It was Michael, Dr. Tomei, and I remember because we were sitting in front of the fireplace in the suite that Michael was staying in. And there was a nanny or someone who was handling the kids, watching the kids, and then the kids were there. And the reason I knew it was Halloween is because they were dressed in costume.
Did you recognize the nanny? Do you know the nanny?
No.
All right. What was the conversation about in the suite in October 2008?
Objection of relevance or limited to as it relates to the concert?
With that limitation overruled. You may answer.
Michael was expressing to me one of the reasons he had decided to restart his career.
All right. And what was one of those reasons?
The primary reason was that he wanted to finally settle down and get a really, really good home for the kids and for his family. So they weren't, in his words, living like vagabonds. That's what he said to me.
Was he emotional when he discussed this?
It got emotional, yes.
All right. When did it get emotional?
When he was just describing how they had lived, he and the three kids, and that he just really wanted to settle down. He was tired of living like that, and it was emotional, and I cried. So.
Did he cry?
Yes.
All right. Did he describe where he had been living in the last few years?
Objection relevant.
Sustained. 350 and 352.
How long did this meeting last in the suite in the Bel Air Hotel?
To the best of my recollection, Mr. Chernoff, probably about an hour to 90 minutes.
Would you characterize this meeting as essentially one of the last meetings, or essentially the last meeting before, I guess, the lawyers got involved with the numbers and ultimate contract preparation?
To the best of my recollection, probably.
And then at some point a contract was prepared, agreed to, and signed. Is that right?
That is correct.
This contract, it provided for how many shows, Mr. Phillips?
31.
31. Is there any significance to the 31?
Yes.
Okay. What is that significance?
Michael wanted to do 10 more than Prince did.
It appeared to you that he understood the significance of that?
He came up with the number, yes.
All right. And you, of course, agreed?
Yes.
All right. When was this contract signed?
I think sometime mid-January, could have been the third week in January of 2009.
The contract was signed at Michael Jackson's residence?
Yes.
Okay. And you were signatory on that contract? You signed it?
I signed for AEG Live.
All right. And Michael Jackson signed it personally?
That's correct.
Now, tell us, Mr. Phillips, what the contract that you agreed to, how was AEG going to make money on this contract? What was your...
Allow the full question, since we have multiple ones.
What was AEG's stake in the contract?
Objection relevant.
Sustained.
Can you tell us after... can you tell us what Michael Jackson's stake in it was? Can you tell us what you could you estimate for us how much you think Michael Jackson was capable of making, assuming successful completion of the 31 shows?
Objection relevant.
Sustained. 350 and 352.
In order to put together concerts like this, there needs to be rehearsals. Is that right?
Correct.
And not only rehearsals, there needs to be a whole lot of let me back up. There needs to be production, initial production to prepare these shows for concerts. Is that right?
Correct.
Choreography.
Correct.
All of the things that you would expect from a show a show from Michael Jackson, right?
That is yes.
All right. The costs of all of these particular preparations and production, the early production, is that something that the contract spoke to?
Objection relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Would part of the contract...
May we approach, Your Honor?
You may.
After the signing of the contract in January 2009, it may not have been after. You understand that you do know that Michael Jackson moved into the Carrollwood residence?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Do you know when he moved into that residence?
Well, considering we signed the contract in the living room of that residence, it had to be sometime in January.
All right. Do you know, well, let me ask you this. Did AEG Live pay for that residence?
Sustained.
You testified that the contract provided for 31 shows, right?
Correct.
And at some point that went up from 31 shows. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, prior to may we approach, Judge? Can
Please. Sure. Chernoff, thank you.
Mr. Phillips, from January, and we're going to assume that the contract, the agreement was signed on January 26, 2009, for purposes of this question. From January 26 to March, first week of March 2009, was there any movement, was there any production on the This Is It concert tour?
No, there wasn't.
All right. And the initial agreement that you made that involved you and Michael Jackson Company, was for 31 shows, or actually up to 31 shows. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Was there any conversation about the number of shows? Are you familiar with the teaser, the term teaser
In advertising?
Yeah, in advertising with regard to the number of shows.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yes.
right.
Yes.
And
No, I know. Yes.
all right. And was there some plan by AEG Live and perhaps others to perhaps tease a certain number of shows to the public to see how things would go with regard to the sales of the shows?
If I'm understanding your question.
I'm not asking right, I'm sorry, but I think you do understand.
Okay. Initially, we put 10 shows on sale, or we advertised 10 shows, was the initial run. You would never, as a promoter, put all of your shows on sale at the same time because it becomes a disincentive for early purchase.
All right, so that was the first advertised number of shows.
Correct.
All right. And when was this done?
Right after the press conference, March 5th.
All right, and that press conference was March 5th.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
Correct.
held at the O2 Arena?
That is correct.
Okay. Now let's talk about any conversations you had with Michael Jackson between January 26th and March 5th. Was there further and ongoing negotiations at that time? Or were you essentially, had you essentially stopped having contact with Michael Jackson?
No, we had to put the artwork together for the on sale. So the discussions
were creative, and I think Paul Gongaware had other discussions with them about the production.
All right, and that's what was occurring between January 26th and March 5th. Is that
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, on March 5th, did you go out to London for this press conference, for this announcement?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And describe for us how this press conference was set up at the O2 Arena.
Well, my staff in London put it together, had organized it. We had a press agent named Alan Edwards, who I believe had worked with Michael before, and he pretty much organized, invited the press, the media, and my staff set it up.
All right, and you and your staff went out to O2 Arena for this press conference.
That is correct.
And so, as did Michael Jackson and his security staff. Is that right?
Correct, correct.
Did you stay in the same hotel as he did?
No.
Objection relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained.
I want to.
Just a moment.
Sorry for answering,
That's
sir.
right. The objection sustained. The last answer straight.
I want
Disregard,
to
please.
direct your attention to the press conference itself. Was Michael Jackson scheduled to speak at that press conference?
Yes, he was.
Do you know when he was scheduled to speak?
Objection relevance.
The objection is sustained. 350 and 352.
Was Michael Jackson late for his press
Objection
conference?
relevance.
Sustained. 350 and 352. Another subject. Thank you.
Were you present at his press conference?
Yes,
Objection.
Yes,
The court just ruled next subject.
Thank you. The
Well,
objection
that's
is
not.
sustained.
I believe the last subject was whether he was late, and this is whether now he had attended. Should I just stay away from the press conference at all, completely,
Correct.
Your Honor?
Thank you.
No press conference. Okay.
You can move to another subject. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. All right. After the press conference, then there would be a focus then on the production of the show. Is that right?
correct,
And that's exactly what happened.
correct.
Okay. Now, before we get to that, let's talk about the sales of the show. After the announcement was made on March 5th, how were sales?
We started fabulous, over the top.
And how long did it take you to blow past the 10, then the 31 shows?
Well, we did a pre-registration, meaning people could register to purchase tickets. And one of the reasons we did that was to create a database for Michael, so he could sell music to his fans and have direct contact through a website called michaeljacksonlive.com.
All right, and so what happened with the sales?
The registrations were, we had never seen that kind of demand, at least in my career, that kind of demand for tickets for a show.
It became clear that 31 shows were not going to be enough?
Yes, it was obvious that we would have blown through the sales on 31 shows in what we call the pre-sale, and not have had any tickets left for the general public on sale.
All right, so what did you do in response to that? Or what did you or Paul Gongaware do?
Paul called me, said in his inimitable fashion, "Dude, can you call Dr. Tomei and see if Michael will agree to do more shows, because this is an unprecedented demand."
All right, and was that done?
Yes, I called Dr. Tomei.
All right. Did Michael Jackson eventually agree to do more shows?
Right, to say it almost simultaneous with my conversations with Dr. Tomei, I also spoke to Michael
Just like that?
within 20 minutes.
All right, but Michael Jackson had some requests to do more shows, right?
That is correct.
And what were those requests?
Dr. Tomei first told me what they were, and then Michael called me directly, and basically what he wanted was, 50 shows. That was the maximum amount of shows he wanted to do, because he didn't want to, as he said to me, live in London and have to get a new passport. And what he wanted was me to find an estate for him that I could lease outside of London. And he was very specific. He wanted 16-plus acres, running streams, horses, And basically what he explained to me is he didn't want to be trapped in a hotel suite, no matter how beautiful, in the heart of London, and not be able to leave and have the kids and he cloistered. He wanted to give them a pastoral country vibe, living vibe. Okay, so condition one was that I find an estate for him to live in and the children. And then condition two was that at the 50th show, he wanted me to arrange for the Guinness Book of World Records to be there because he knew this was a feat that no performer would ever be able to beat.
And you knew that was a feat that no performer had ever beaten, probably never would, huh?
Unfortunately, in my career, yes.